And we are heading to our next speakers. It's our very good partners and colleagues from Berlin Group. And I invite Ortwin Scheja and Wijnand Machielse to speak about PSD2 status and the Berlin Group frameworks in open banking. The stage is yours. Thanks a lot for being with us today.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, thank you very much for your kind introduction. It's a tremendous pleasure for us to join in these dark times and be present in your Global Payments Week event. We sometimes feel very empty-handed when reading every day about the horrifying Russian atrocities and crimes, but attending your event now is the least we can do as a small sign of our support. What we read and see in the daily news and in the images is only a fraction, of course, of how to describe the reality, but we feel as encouraged as you are by your brave and courageous army and leadership, and how successful they are in defending and liberating Ukrainian territory. You are really blessed with such courageous leaders. We admire your President Zelensky with his daily nation addresses. We try to learn a lot from this, and we are always extremely happy when we receive messages from Irina or Ina, because despite the undoubtedly painful circumstances, it is for us always an expression of their strength and courage. Okay, let me try to share my screen. I hope you can see my screen now.
Not yet.
Yeah. Yeah, right now it's good.
Yes, it's working. Yes. Okay, it's good. Yeah, this.
I'll ask you just to switch to first slide, please, to make some picture.
Sorry?
May I ask you to switch to first one slide for a moment?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes, sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's good one. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, this slide is showing you how we always start our meetings by showing this picture, and by spending some time to honor and commemorate the situation of the Ukrainian people. Again, it's a small thing we can do, but we do hope that all such small things together can add up to a much bigger awareness and impression. I apologize for my voice. I'm still recovering from a very bad cold and a throat infection. So I hope you can hear me well, and I'll do my very best.
No worries, no worries. Okay. It's okay.
Perfect. Good. Then in these difficult moments, let us try to focus then on the topics of today and offer you some distraction to your daily sorrows. As mentioned, my name is Wijnand Machielse, and together with Ortwin Scheja in this call, we are both part of the team that edits and moderates the Berlin Group activities. For those of you for whom Berlin Group is new, please allow me one quick slide to explain what Berlin Group is and does. Berlin Group is a pan-European payments interoperability standards and harmonization initiative, which started in 2004. All European countries are participating via either directly by banks or via their banking associations, payment associations, payment schemes, or via interbank processors, and in open finance, also via central banks. As mentioned here on the slide, we have several main focus areas, and today we will inform you in more detail on the two related initiatives of sorry, I was too fast. The two related initiatives of NextGen PSD2 Open Banking and Open Finance. Yeah, so NextGen PSD2 was the first standard developed several years ago, and Open Finance is now the extension of NextGen PSD2, which is working on all the additional Open Finance services and account types. Yeah, so NextGen PSD2 still exists, but it's let's say it's the basis for Open Finance and is now fully integrated into our Open Finance framework. Okay, after this short introduction on Berlin Group, this slide is showing the proposed outline for the session, where we will first start by explaining how the European Commission is approaching open banking and open finance. It's a good background to know that in Europe, the preparations for the digital economy started roughly 15 years ago. Yeah, some people would argue even earlier, and maybe already with the introduction of the euro as a common currency. But in any case, open banking and open finance are considered as an essential component towards digitalization of payments, together with instant real-time payments and digital identity services. For Europe, it was calculated that a digital single market with more innovation and competition can create up to 415 billion euro in additional growth and hundreds of thousands of new jobs. So this clarifies why there has always been so much political and regulatory interest towards the digital economy. And specific to open banking, you may know that the revised Payment Services Directive, or PSD2, as it's called briefly, that this regulation aimed to solve one of the, or I should say some of the deficiencies of earlier regulations. First of all, it aimed to reduce market fragmentation in standards and interfaces and create more harmonization. Second, it aimed to end legal uncertainties regarding liabilities, potential security risks, and consumer protection. And third, it aimed to regulate third-party providers, or TPPs, as they are called in abbreviation. And this means that these entities have to be licensed and supervised. As let's say the main aim of PSD2 to grow innovation and competition in retail payments is very comparable to earlier liberalization of, for instance, telecommunications, electricity, railroads, postal systems, etc. So as such, open banking can be considered to offer the next big shift in banking services after traditional offices, online banking, and mobile banking. So far, nothing new. And in the meantime, the European Commission has started a PSD2 review process that may result in either a PSD3 proposal or in amendments to PSD2. And a report of this review is expected in the coming months. And we are currently estimating that in January, February next year, we will know much more about the envisaged plans of the European Commission, whether they indeed want to issue a new PSD3 or that they will work with amendments to PSD2. Soon after PSD2 entered into force, the European Commission already came with a digital finance strategy that opened the doors for open finance and open data in general, So already moving beyond open banking. Yeah. And in addition, in 2020, the Commission promoted a coherent governance framework for the common European data spaces, which also mentioned the arrival of a new open finance framework that may become very concrete already next year. You can read all text information quietly afterwards, because I think it will be much more interesting to see how Berlin Group is accommodating all these regulatory requirements. So, as you know, PSD2 mandated the banks to offer regulated TPPs an interface to access their systems and customer accounts, for account information and for payment initiation services. And there are a lot of regulatory requirements that have to be taken into account. For the connection between banks and TPPs, it obviously makes a lot of sense to have one common standard for the interface between the banks and the TPPs. Because it's easy to imagine that when each of the, approximately currently in Europe, 4,000 to 5,000 banks, when they all would start to develop and test and document and maintain their own proprietary open banking interfaces, then this would generate huge complexities and costs into the market. So this was the time when the idea started to grow within the Berlin Group to develop uniform and interoperable open banking communications and offer this as the open banking key to the TPPs via RESTful APIs. This is what was delivered as the next-gen PSD2 framework. So developed in the spirit of an open source initiative. So the standards are publicly available via the website and are offered for free. The framework itself is built of 4 artifacts. So it has an introductions paper and an operational rules document that covers the service description, the abstract logical data models, and the detailed process flow descriptions in a B2B interface. This is delivered together with implementation guidelines that specify the interface in full technical detail, including XML, JSON, schemas, etc. And on top of this, an open API file, so-called Swagger file, is delivered that helps implementers during development. Now, this slide is showing you some of the key characteristics of the next-gen PSD2 framework. So everything is based on REST APIs with encoding in JSON or XML, as I said, with 4 models for strong customer authentication and 3 types of consent handling. You can all read this afterwards in more detail. Besides the mandatory minimum set of services required from the PSD2 regulation, the next-gen PSD2 framework offers a number of optional services as well that can be required in specific jurisdictions in Europe, or have to be supported when offered by the online banking environment of a bank. And on top of this, the framework offers a number of optional extended services. So with this, we are already offering a lot more than what was required by law. And you see on this slide, you see all these services displayed here. This slide is showing you the geographic coverage of countries where banks and TPPs are involved in the standards development and in implementation. As you can see, we took the liberty to add Ukraine already as well, based on our previous discussions with EMA and the Open API group. Although your priorities may have shifted this year due to the war from Russia, and we know, of course, that that Ukraine has not progressed to the implementation level yet. Yeah, but nevertheless, we wanted to express our desire that you belong to our part of the world. And as far as I'm concerned, Ukraine should become an EU and NATO member as soon as possible as well. So that's why we took the liberty to include you on this slide. Yeah, we are, of course, very happy with such a large-scale adoption because this tremendously reduces the complexity and fragmentation risks and provides uniform access to the market with optimal reachability for everyone. And consequently, it saves a lot of costs and risks in development and in testing and documenting, etc. In the end, this has, of course, also the great benefit that better, cheaper, and faster time to market services for bank customers are generated. And this was, of course, an important objective of PSD2 in the first place. Now, while Berlin Group is only focusing on standards development, yeah, so we separated implementation support in a separately governed entity. We know from earlier surveys and from ECB, so the European Central Bank feedback, that roughly 80% of European banks and hundreds of TPPs have implemented the Berlin Group frameworks. And the standard has met strong adoption and support outside the PSD2 mandated countries as well. For instance, in Georgia and in Israel. Israel is a very special case to us because they are quite advanced already in open finance. So there is a cross-fertilization, you could say, between the PSD2 countries and with Israel. In Israel, the central bank has mandated the implementation of the Berlin Group frameworks to its banks and to its TPPs, mainly with the motivation to stay compliant and reachable with the European market, so that API-based business between Europe and Israel can flourish. As you can see, participation from the market supply side has grown to 69 organizations from 30 countries, and more than 100 TPPs, fintechs, merchants, IT providers, and corporates are participating on the market demand side in the advisory board, and they are counseling on the future evolution of the standards. So here you see an overview of the current task force participants, with a mixture of banks, banking associations, payment association schemes, interbank processors, etc. As providers of the APIs, they coordinate the standards development. And this is an overview of the advisory board participants, which is a group of, as you can see, TPPs, fintechs, merchants, consultancies, and they are counseling on the future evolution of the standards. A full list with all the participants is, by the way, available on the website. The advisory board, the cooperation with the advisory board is very, very good. In the past years, they have always been involved in the prioritization of our work plan, of our annual work plan. And this is happening again, actually, as we speak. We hope that we are able to publish the work plan for next year towards the end of this year or either in January. But we're going again through this process. Now, what is the impact of open banking and open finance on market participants? Yeah, I think it's good to have a look at this. So the initial impact of PSD2 was, of course, that it increased IT and compliance costs, and it created a risk for loss of income in retail and corporate payments. On top of that, there was, of course, an additional competition for the customer interface. Third parties are offering a direct API access to the customer interface. So the banks are having quite some competition on this. And this raises, of course, the need to focus more on the customer interface and on the front-end services provided by banks. Sorry. Let's say, no, that is exactly what I said already. The front-end customer contact is becoming more and more important, and banks should really change their view on what was previously their vertically integrated and product-focused approach to new open finance value propositions at the front end. There are, of course, many ways to do this. One very popular theme is embedded finance via banking as a service or banking as a platform. And they offer very interesting, and we see this happening already in the European market. They offer very interesting ways to combine existing product features and functionalities into new commercial products and services that users can access from any channel that they have access to. Now, what is very encouraging is that both banks and TPPs are identifying a lot of new business opportunities with open finance. As a leverage, of course, from the high investments in the open banking architecture and all the implementations. So while open banking in PSD2 was maybe sometimes mainly assessed as a compliancy effort, this has really changed now with open finance, which is assessed more and more on the metrics of new business models, which are supported by the high synergies and investment leverage of PSD2-based open banking. And for Berlin Group, open banking has always only been the beginning of a larger journey into open finance and open data. And we have in the meantime taken the next-gen PSD2 standard as the basis for the open finance framework. We have, from the very, well, let's say the early phases after the compliancy was fulfilled, we've seen a strong market interest from both banks and TPPs to leverage the next-gen PSD2 technology and infrastructure investments and start offering enhanced services and products and information on top of this. I will now hand over to my colleague Ortwin Scheja to clarify this on the next slides and review the status on our open finance standardization.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much, Wijnand. Yeah, it's my pleasure to give you a little bit insight into what's happening in the, let's say, premium services delivery and developments based on the PSD2 compliance APIs. First thing you can see here is that we are extending the access to other clients, not only regulated TPPs. You could have service providers, IT service providers, for example, from the whole card business. You could have direct access of merchants. So it's a matter of how to reuse now this API infrastructure for direct access of your own customers, because that's very similar to corporate business technically. And or the direct access of, for example, merchants for example, if you take request to pay instead of a payment initiation, that is regulatory a different thing and doesn't need a doesn't need a regulated entity to use it, and from a regulatory point of view, so you could have let's say huge merchant platforms connecting directly. Yeah, but the so we will deliver a new API, but it's based on the same API management that will share a lot of functionality with the compliance APIs, but will be, let's say, provided by the bank, addressable separately from the outside world. Next, yeah, next page, please. Yeah, and here's what we have done this year. So you can see here what is already delivered. So first thing on the AIS part, we have now delivered all account types, not loans, credit cards, saving accounts, and also securities. That's brand new, will be published in the next 2 weeks. So let's say the AIS part of open banking is sort of complete. Yeah, and we are now focusing on premium payment services mainly. And this is first bringing all credit card features to account payments, like reservation of funds, reservations. You can update in future also reservations. You can execute, let's say, payments dynamically on and later on after authorization. So to separate the authorization process and the execution process, like we have in cards. To have dynamically defined recurring payments, so where you are, for example, authorizing a maximum amount for a certain period, and then in every period, let's say the TPP is sending the correct amount for this month, like for monthly billing for example for telcos, yeah, or other variable recurring contracts. The next one is pay by loan. So now that the interest rates are going up again, and we are back to normal banking business, sort of, as we were used to before, let's say, the financial crisis and all the impact we saw after that. That is the next API we will deliver. And this is, yeah, let's say on the payment side, and we are now starting to connect this with document services. Yeah, so postal services, high-value postal services for contracts, for offers, for invoices, they are now started to be added to all the payment or request to pay related APIs and make, let's say, build up a new ecosystem for the full digitalization of processes, specifically for the SMEs and corporates, yeah, but also for private customers. And on the other side, we are, let's say, adding more functionality on all the management parts. So for how to deal with, because it's now about premium APIs, how to agree on prices, how to confirm prices, how to deal with price changes. So these are all APIs we are now working on for, let's say, more commercial onboarding and management of TPPs, of the relationship. Yeah. So because we see, let's say, the distributed aspect as a main aspect of API schemes, yeah, and so if you compare them, let's say, with the existing card schemes, which are very centralized, API schemes come with more distributed functionality, but that and a deeper, let's say, value chain on the banking side, on the bank side, and but it also comes with the sort of some efforts needed, and this is now offered on API level, more management, commercial management functions of the API. Okay. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is our has been our roadmap, and as always, our roadmap is a bit challenging. So this year we had been hit by, let's say, deep discussions on API access schemes. So like with the Giro API in the German market or with EPC SPA on European level. So even if APIs deliver a deep value chain on the banking side, you need somehow to orchestrate implementation, and you need to orchestrate liabilities, commercial liabilities, because you don't want to make, let's say, 100 bilateral contracts as a bank with TPPs. Yeah, so you need scheme support, and this is evolving now in Europe. Yeah, on European scale or also domestic scale, and we have been involved in deep and long discussions. And so to get it, let's say, matching what we sort of are doing. And so that is, bringing together all the efforts from different parts, from the regulators, having them in the discussions, from the advisors, from the banks. So it is a long story, but we are making really real progress now. And we are also doing things like I've started now to connect, let's say, DLT infrastructures to the payment APIs. So this is one of the next things to be offered as a first step into a full, let's say, DLT-based payments, to have first a bridging technology. So this is also the things we will take care of next year. And we will see the big impact of digital euro discussions and, of course, also the new potential EIDOS ID functions with the UD wallet. So this is all things and impacts to be covered next year. So we have a roadmap, a heavy roadmap ahead. But of course, we are happy to let's say, to face these new challenges and to really build a new ecosystem here, in Europe. Okay.
Sorry, Ortwin, we are a bit out of timing, so
yes, I think we are. Most of the things are done. If you skip to the next slide, I think that's not so important. So other than, as I said, we have an intensified contact now with the API access teams. That will be the one big thing for the next year. Maybe next point. That's not so important. We are just preparing a work plan, and we will issue it starting of next year. To publish it. We go to the next slide.
I think that's it, Ortwin.
Okay.
And everybody can have a look at the details later on. So with the fact that we are running out of time, I propose that we skip the slides on the digital euro, because I think everyone is maybe already a bit familiar with it. And can review the slides also afterwards. One thing worth mentioning is that we are heavily involved in the digital euro discussions as well. And we, as Ortwin mentioned, we expect a lot of impact from this. And it was very encouraging for us to see that the ECB already started to use the next-gen PSD2 standards as the basis for the front-end prototyping. So what you're seeing here is a slide from the ECB, and these prototype developments have now started just recently. So that was very nice. Then maybe to conclude, I think we have hopefully been able to explain that banks, TPPs, corporates, and SMEs are now really acknowledging the power of the API economy, and many banks are adopting a TPP role as well. We have learned a lot. I mean, it's a long way from use cases to the detailed API services, especially for new business, which was not covered yet. Let's say open finance really enables rebundling of services, and this is a very interesting for commercial win-win propositions. The fact that we are using open common standards enables, of course, increased reachability and interoperability, and enhances competition and innovation. So with this, we've come to the end. So thank you very much for your attention. If there is still time left for some questions, we will be happy to answer them, of course. And if you would like to have more information afterwards, then you can always reach out to us. We've included some backup slides with more technical details on the key characteristics. And also with a few use case examples where open finance proves its value. So this leaves us to wish you well, and we hope that we are allowed to support you further in your future of open banking and open finance. Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure and really an honor for us to be with you. Thank you very much.
So much.
Thank you, guys.
Sasha, do we have any questions?
It looks like not yet.
Just to clarify, is it digital euro? Is it about CBDC or not?
Yes. It's a central bank digital currency of the European Central Bank. Yes.
And so you are involved in this development, right?
Yes. Yeah. From several angles, we are involved. But yes, we are also involved in the digital euro developments, and of course we have to absorb the impact from the digital euro design into the Berlin Group standards. Yeah. So that's why we have to keep a close eye on this.
I see. Okay, thank you so much. So, yeah, considering that we are out of timing, if any questions, so we're in touch and EMA is in touch with you. And thanks a lot for your participation today.
Thank you. I think my
Pleasure.
voice picked up quite well. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We'll stay connected.